By now, you are obviously aware of President Zelensky's visit to the White House and what ensued after that meeting. Today, I'll briefly talk about the meeting itself, but the treatment of the president of Ukraine, whose country was attacked by Russia, by the US president and vice president. It's something that we need to think about and talk about a little more because there is so much at stake on the world stage around the Russian aggression against Ukraine. So let's delve into it a little bit. So let's keep in mind the background. President Zelensky was invited to visit the President of the United States, and at the end of that meeting, they were supposed to sign the minerals deal, which the Ukrainians were probably ready to sign. Now, we all know that that deal offers no direct guarantees against future Russian aggression. But that was the purpose of the deal. During the meeting, and this is probably a first in a publicized Oval Office meeting, suddenly, instead of talking about the deal or anything else, first, President Zelensky was blamed for not being respectful. Actually, he was called being disrespectful and not being grateful. So imagine the scenario. You are the leader of a country under attack by an aggressive world power. You have come to visit what until yesterday were your allies, and you are publicly put on a defensive because of what is your perceived attitude. So what it teaches us is that if you come to United States asking for their help, not only should you be willing to sign off any national wealth that you have, you should also be meek and subservient, which is a colonial mindset and an absolutely un-American thing to expect of anyone, much less an ally. Then the conversation further devolved into not just that he was being disrespectful, that he no longer had any cards, no hand to play. This is what Mr. Trump said. Now, that is wrong on two levels. Metaphorically speaking, telling the president of a country under attack whose people are dying daily in the cities as well as in the battlefield, using the game metaphor itself is, insensitive and wrong, and Zelensky was right to say, I am not playing cards. But let's think about it. What were President Zelensky's cards? His own troops and their resources on the battlefield, his citizens who stood by him and still stand by him, but more importantly, his allies. And amongst them, the trump card, the most powerful card, was United States. So if the president of United States who wants to sign a peace deal without involving Ukraine is telling Ukraine that you don't have any cards, if he is saying that, what does it mean? Obviously, it means we are not going to help you anymore. So suggesting to someone who has come to meet his allies that they don't have any cards is actually you admitting that you, as the power and as the president of a superpower, have conceded to Russia, to Putin. That's how Zelensky doesn't have any cards. But overall, the attitude, if you could reenact it, was an imperial attitude. Powerful men in suits trying to browbeat the president of a nation who has suffered heavily and is still in the state of war. Now let's keep in mind what is it that Trump wants to accomplish. Not a just peace. No, if he wanted a just peace from the very start, he would have centered what the Ukrainians want and supported them in negotiating a peace settlement with Putin. No, but United States suddenly is negotiating directly with Russia without involving the other party, which is Ukraine, the party that was attacked. So the interest, U.S. interest, and not even U.S. interest, President Trump's interest is to get a deal, right? He wants to be able to say, I brought this war to end. He's not interested in a just end, just the end. And if that end is achieved without Ukrainian input, by isolating Ukraine, whose interest would it serve? Russia's, Putin's interest. So that's how I read it, that entire situation. And what does it teach us? You know, I'm originally from Pakistan. I think the world leaders are watching. So the first thing that you learn is you cannot rely on United States as a partner or as someone who supports you, because they can turn like this, that United States is an unreliable ally. Now, it may not mean much to Mr. Trump, it may not mean much to J.D. Vance, but when you deal with the world, your allies need to know that in the time of your need, you will stand by your word, your promises. So it has weakened United States. Who has it strengthened? That's pretty obvious. Who has the strongest hand right now? President Putin. Why? Because United States, the President of United States and the machinery that they control has actually conceded to Putin's point of view. They are literally speaking the propaganda points that come from Kremlin. The President of United States is doing that. And that's dangerous, right? It's dangerous for the world. It's dangerous for United States. So, you know, I read these things, I talk about them, I think about these things. I have never really believed in a simplistic view of America being a benign power. I mean, I understand America is a global power and it usually and often coerces other nations to submit, to get what they want. They have even fought wars for it, many wars, which were completely useless. But there always was a veneer of diplomacy, a soft power. The power wielded wasn't just so blatant and brutal. You didn't invite people to your own home and insult them and berate them. You didn't openly declare that you are on the side of what until recently had been a belligerent power. So going down the road, we have 4 more years of this president. And of course, he has very loyal followers. They have their reasons to follow him. But my question to them and to all of us is, what kind of a country do we live in? Is this a democracy where our leaders at least try to justify to us why is it that they are doing what they're doing? Are we a country which makes promises and then ditches allies in the middle? I mean, historically we are, right? We have done it in Afghanistan. We've done it to other allies. But is that what we want to perpetuate? More importantly, this kind of politics, what will it do to United States? Now, if you look at the spin coming out of the White House and Trump's ilk, it is America is back. We have asserted ourselves and we speak our mind. So first of all, who have we asserted ourselves against? The leader of a nation almost at the brink of destruction. That's not power. That's not strength. That's cowardice. I mean, would you consider it a brave act if someone was fallen down and you kicked them? Right? Even little kids would know that hitting someone or kicking someone who is already down is not a brave act. So for the conservative pundits and Fox News to consider this an act of bravery by the most powerful man in the world, I think it's silly and ludicrous, right? It's an act of cowardice. It's not an act of power or an act of courage. Furthermore, if United States is now with Russia, which they have proven, they voted against the UN General Assembly resolution and voted with China and Russia, then how many of Americans are with them? And is that where America stands? Because then the world alliances need to be realigned, right? I have nothing against reshuffling of global alliances. I'm opposed to power politics anyway, but that's a question that people need to ask of Trump openly. Are we now with Russia? Is Russia our ally, right? And if so, what about Europe and other nations and, of course, our neighbors? Overall, I mean, I've thought about it. What is it that President Zelenskyy could have done? I think as the leader of a nation at war, I think it's important that he stood his ground. That he basically said, no, I am thankful to American people on record publicly. I'm grateful for your help, but Russia attacked us. Putin is the one killing my people. And it is important for him to remind the world and remind United States that that is what happened, because the President of the United States actually said that, Ukraine attacked Russia, which is Russian propaganda being spewed out by the US president. So I don't know what side of the political divide you are on. On a human level, think about it. Would you, as a person, invite someone to your own home, someone who is in a weaker position and seeks your help and has previously had your help, and try to convince them that not only you're not going to help them, but they should consider the one who has attacked them and brought them to that position as an innocent party? Would you do that? And then would you berate them for not being grateful and thankful in your own home? And chances are, it doesn't matter what your politics is. If you're a decent human being, you will say, no, we won't do that. Not publicly, at least, right? And that is what the US president and vice president did. And I think it is wrong. And there is nothing wrong in admitting that. It doesn't make United States weak. It doesn't make Trump weak, right? But it allows us to retain and maybe reclaim our humanity, which is constantly under challenge, right? And as far as my opinion is concerned, in this conflict, I don't like wars. I've fought 2 of them. I've always been on the side of Ukraine because I could clearly see the Russian aggression and the death and destruction of Ukrainian people. And so obviously, as a moral human being, I've always been on the side of Ukraine, no matter what justifying narratives the Russians offer. Nothing gives them the right to destroy Ukrainian way of life. Just as I'm always on the side of those who are being attacked and who are weak and whose way of life is being destroyed, right? So that's where I've stood, that's where I stand, and that's what I wanted to share today. But I do condemn what Trump and J.D. Vance did in their office and the subsequent actions of bringing Ukraine to heel, robbing them of their national resources, humiliating them. I think it's terrible and morally wrong. And as a person, with no power at all, I will always stand with the weak, and I will always be on the side of the Ukrainian people against Russian aggression. That's all. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're doing well. Stay safe, take care, and as always, from me to you, peace and love.